We begin with former President Trump in court for opening statements in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud trial against him. That trial comes after the judge ruled that Trump committed fraud by repeatedly inflating the value of some of his properties, exaggerating his net worth by more than $2 billion. Now the trial will decide what additional penalties he could face, with prosecutors asking for a fine of $250 million. Former President Trump is denying all wrongdoing, calling the trial election interference.
So very simply put, it's a witch hunt. It's a disgrace. We have a corrupt attorney general in this state. You see how she does? This trial was railroaded and fast-tracked. This trial could have been brought years ago, but they waited till I was right in the middle of my campaign.
That was President Trump just before walking into that courtroom. Our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky, has the latest.
Donald Trump begins a civil trial that puts him at risk of losing control of the business that propelled him to the White House. New York Attorney General Letitia James sued Trump, his adult sons, Don Jr. and Eric, and their family real estate firm for persistent and repeated business fraud that grossly inflated how wealthy Trump really is.
Donald Trump engaged in years of illegal conduct to inflate his net worth, to deceive banks and the people of the great state of New York.
The investigation began more than 4 years ago after Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, told Congress Trump lied about the value of his properties.
It was my experience that Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes.
The judge has already decided the core of the case, finding clear, indisputable documentary evidence Trump inflated his net worth by as much as $2.2 billion to win more favorable terms on loans and insurance. Trump has denied it, calling the judge deranged and telling a campaign rally in Iowa,
It's happening for a single reason, because I'm the only candidate they do not want to run against.
But the judge's ruling said Trump was living in a fantasy world, and it's already threatening to wrest from Trump's control some of his prized assets, including his signature skyscraper, Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, where he rode the golden escalator to announce his first run for president.
The stakes here are enormous for former President Trump, because if he is barred from doing business in New York and he is required to sell off all of his New York real estate portfolio, it could cost him hundreds of millions of dollars and severely damage not only the Trump brand, but also the value of his business.
The trial will help the judge determine how much Trump has to pay in penalties. The state has asked for $250 million.
Our thanks to Aaron Katersky for that report. Let's bring in investigative reporter Olivia Rubin outside the court in New York, ABC News executive editorial producer John Santucci, ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, and ABC News political director Rick Klein for more. Olivia, the judge opened these proceedings saying one thing he knows a lot about is the legal definition of fraud. What did you make of the judge's remarks?
Well, I think, Diane, it's significant given since his ruling that the Trump organization committed fraud, we have seen from the former president that he has stood by the valuations that his company made about the various properties, saying that there was sort of a method behind that madness. But today we hear the judge saying, you know, I know the definition of fraud. So just inside the courtroom, Diane, I was just inside. Opening statements are underway, and the Attorney General's team is beginning to lay out their allegations. And just from that overflow room, Diane, you can sort of see the former president. He is seated at the defense table. He is there between his attorneys, and he is listening very closely to every single word that the prosecutors are saying about his namesake company. He is shaking their head when they talk about fraud. He's sort of leaning around, trying to get a good look, to look directly at the prosecutor. And at the same time, Diane, while he's in this room, they're playing the recorded depositions of his son, Eric Trump, of one of his, close allies at the company, Alan Weisselberg. So that is what the former president is sitting through, at times even looking down at the floor. So really diligently listening in there as sort of the prosecutors lay out what they say are these fraud allegations at the company.
Brian, how could the fact that the judge has already ruled on the central allegation in this case affect the rest of this trial now?
So this is a judge trial, not a jury trial. So the judge plays two roles here, both the arbiter of fact and of law. And so the fact that he's already come out on that first claim, saying that there is in fact fraud, that the valuation of the properties and the way that they came about, and even the methodology of it is fraud, puts Donald Trump and the rest of his party and teams behind the 8 ball, so to speak. They've got to convince the judge what they could not have done in moving papers and in motions, that their methodology is sound and that it is not fraud.
John, former President Trump spoke just before entering the courtroom. He called the judge a rogue judge. He called the attorney general corrupt and racist. This is not a jury trial. So how important is the court of public opinion, both legally and politically?
Well, for that statement, cut, clip, paste, it'll be in your inbox shortly in a fundraising email from Donald Trump for his presidential campaign. Look, Donald Trump needs these cases, needs this visual. The images we're seeing right now on screen, these are images that Donald Trump provokes, wants, and needs, in his opinion, to keep his campaign going. Let's be very clear. Donald Trump campaigning in Iowa, glad-handing, whatever else, is all going to go away very soon, especially as the calendar flips to fiscal year 2024, because almost every day, week, month, he is going to be in a courtroom. He is going to be sitting through proceedings. 4 trials are actively being scheduled for next year. So this, quite frankly, is a little bit of foreshadowing to our new year ahead. Donald Trump in a courtroom, get used to it.
Rick, campaign disclosures show that Trump's 2 political action committees have paid at least $6.3 million to firms representing him in this case. How significant is that?
I think it's significant on 2 levels. First, it tells you exactly how much of his legal campaign and his political campaign are one and the same. To John Santucci's point, he uses these moments because they are probably the best thing his campaign has going for him. And this, I think, financially and on paper, shows that reality, that what he does in court matters politically, and what he does politically will also matter in court. And then secondly, it's a lot of money. And the idea that people are giving money to Donald Trump for president and having him fund his legal bills, many of them are aware of it. Some of them may not be. And it is definitely an issue that's going to be more of a strain as time goes by, because there are a lot of presidential candidates that would love the kind of money that's going right now to lawyers just to spend on ads in early voting states. They'd love to be able to commit that kind of time and that kind of campaign attention to it. But this is a drag on it. And right now, Donald Trump's most urgent issue is keeping himself from convictions, from major penalties and major fines. And that's one reason that so much of the money that he's raising for ostensibly political purposes is paying off his legal bills.
All right, Rick Klein, Olivia Rubin, John Santucci, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you all.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.